The net 90
bruh.
girls give me anxiety. I don't know.
I'm like,
I don't
how
know
are you
how.
living? How are you living?
I don't know how groceries are being bought with net 90. It's very stressful. It's
Imagine
very
finish.
stressful.
Imagine finishing a project in March and
No.
not getting it until and not getting paid anything from it until June.
No.
Imagine.
That's unnecessary.
Imagine.
A lot of legalese is old English that nobody uses except for lawyers, and it's very irritating in my opinion. One of the reasons why the legal profession is very much a gatekeeping profession and is nonsensical is to keep people in the dark. It should just be written in plain English.
I'm just trying to be somebody. So make a way, make a way, make a way.
Hello, everyone. I'm Hallease, a digital storyteller and video producer, endeavoring to persevere as always. And welcome to episode 1 of the Trying to Be Somebody video podcast, season 2, the Know Your Worth season. I am so excited. Can we just take a moment to just meditate on the fact that season 2 is here? And so we back. And we back. And we back, 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 and here. This ain't no intro, this the entree. Anyway, let me get to the point of the podcast. Thank you so much for being back with me. And the theme this year, like I said, is the Know Your Worth season. I am so excited because I wanted episode 1 of this Know Your Worth season to be all about the tangibles. Okay, we're starting this strong. All right, with tangibles around knowing your worth as an artist and creative. And that's why we're going to talk all about legal in today's episode, okay? Buckle your seatbelts, synchronize your pacemakers. We're talking contracts. Because as you inevitably grow as an artist, as a creative, whatever you call yourself, you will have to read more and more contracts. You will have to know what is expected of you contractually. And in this episode, we are going to learn some of the mistakes I made. And honey, I got mistakes. Woo, I got mistakes. And we're going to get some really great advice from an amazing guest. So without further ado, we are going to have a conversation with Stephanie from the YouTube channel Wine and Chill. I will let Stephanie do an introduction of herself, but quick highlights. She is a recovering lawyer. Her words, not mine. She had a career in tech law and entertainment law. So girl been around the block, knows a few things, and she manages the channel Wine and Chill, where she takes all of her legalese and turns it into content. So without further ado, let's have a good old conversation about legal with Stephanie.
So first, thank you for having me, Hallease. I really appreciate that. I have been watching this podcast since the beginning, so I feel very honored to be on the podcast. Just put that out there, and if you are just now watching the podcast, you should watch it. I'm Stephanie. I run the YouTube channel Wine and Chill. I am a recovering lawyer, and essentially my channel is social commentary with a bit of making legalese accessible, as well as looking at how laws and history affect our day-to-day lives. With some wine. I forgot that part. I mean, the wine.
With wine. But I also love that you have like wine-free months where you're drinking really quality water, I guess. Is that what's
Yes.
happening?
Tap. New York Tap is that good stuff. Free 99.
But I feel like you should reach out to the high quality waters to see if they'll sponsor you on the months
I
that you're like,
wonder. I've gotten free wine, which is great. I've gotten vodka too, which I was like, all right.
ooh,
I don't discriminate with my liquor. I just,
yeah.
wine, it's just very accessible. So yeah, I'm down for the water too. Because
I
what
mean,
was funny is whenever I noticed like people were like, they didn't agree with whatever the social commentary was because maybe they were in a class of being aggressive and loud and wrong, that they would be like, oh, that's because you're drunk. And it's like, I took 2 sips. First and foremost, like, if you're getting drunk off of 2 sips, kudos to you. I wish that would be so much more cost effective. And then some months I'm like, oh, I just don't feel like drinking. So I'm like, we're having water. So yeah.
What prevailed you to start your channel though?
Yeah. So being a recovering lawyer, I have 6-figure student loans. Actually, before I like actually started the channel, when my first year out of law school, I had a friend who was like, you hate being a lawyer. And I was like, girl, that is not the point. We owe all this money now. Absolutely not. Like, do you know my parents, specifically my dad? Like, this is not a conversation I want to have. And she was like, you would be a great producer. And I was like, I don't know what that means. But I forgot that my best friend actually is a producer, a website producer specifically. She works for a major retail company. And is one of their producers. And I was like, hey, what do you do at work again? Like, what does that mean? What's a production that we could do end to end? I just want to test it out. So the more I thought about it, the more I was like, oh, let's do a YouTube video because that is a mini production. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, at that point, I lived with my grandparents. I was like, okay, we can't film there. So I have to find where we're going to film. I have to find someone. I didn't know that you could use your iPhone. So I was like, I have to find someone with a camera. Me and her are going to write a script, etc. So we did a 3-minute video about wearing your natural hair in the workplace because it's been a problem all these years, apparently for other people to accept that it is fine. Don't touch, just hush. Don't say anything. Just leave it alone. So we did that and I loved it. It took us 3 months to edit said 3-minute video. Yeah, it was sad. You would be very ashamed. It was very but I loved it. I was like, oh, this is so much fun. Let's do this again. And she was like, I hate editing. You hate editing. Who was going to edit this? And I was like, I don't know. So it kind of died. It died there in 2016 where I found, or 2017 where I found it. It just died. One video. The video still up there. And then 2019, she was like, just do it by yourself. And I was like, by myself? You want me to talk into the camera like one of those people? Now I'm one of those people. And I was like, all right. So I did a video about like nosy coworkers, much in the vein of your show, which I adore. And so it also died because who was going to do the editing? So 2 videos now. That panorama came and I was like, damn, I have all this free time and I have nothing to do. And I had finally started paying off my student loans, my 6-figure debt. And I was like, oh, why don't I just restart the channel for real this time? See what happens. It'll be like a nice hobby. You can't go outside. I love the gym. So the gyms were all closed in New York. And I was like, I need something to do. I'm going to lose my mind. So the channel started off as like a student loan documentation of like how to pay off your student loan. This is what I'm doing. Like, this is like my little diary of student loan payments. And then I would say 6 weeks into that channel actually working, and I had kept with it. Every week I'd post something. One of my good friends, because I used to work in entertainment, Kanye decided that he would tweet out his 100 and something pages of his contract. So she was like, hey, you should do a review. People would love to see a contract breakdown. And I was like, what? That's a thing? I was like, who's going to want to watch my boring lawyer self talk about this? Like, nobody wants to watch that. We're going to stick with student loans. There's not that, they were like, I didn't even have 100 subscribers, I don't think. It was just a nice little, like, let's vent, let's talk about it. It was very small. Maybe I hit 100, but I highly doubt it. At that point, I had even 100. So I did that video and I was nervous. I was like, whatever, let's do this video. And the channel has always been wine and chill. So I was like, okay, I have the wine. Like, it's fine. And if it's awful, I will just delete the video. Impressive TV, who is a very large channel. She basically does, I would say, like pop culture reporting, drama channel. It was very kind of her. She gave me a shout out. So next thing I know, I'm getting all these notifications in the YouTube app, like Impressive sent me. So I went on a date actually with my boyfriend that night, and I looked at him and I was like, Gabriel, there is a bot on my channel. There is a bot on my channel. I don't know what this is. They're all saying, I was like, what? I was like, it's broken. It's broken. I don't know what happened. And he's like laughing at me. And I was like, what's so funny? Because I'm very, ironically, a non-technological person. So I was a tech attorney for years. The worst of technology. So I was convinced that the thing was broken. So in the morning, I looked at it and I was like, oh, this is a huge channel because I know nothing about YouTube. Oh, this is so kind of her. I really appreciate this. And I had all of a sudden in a span of like a couple weeks, had a couple thousand subscribers and then 5,000 subscribers, 6,000 subscribers. And I was like, what? And they're like, this is a great niche. You should do more of this. So the channel pivoted to basically, I would say like entertainment law, lawsuits. Breakdown of lawsuits, some contracts that would require somebody, being so bold to tweet out their contract, which there's usually confidentiality clauses. Shouldn't do that. Not encouraging it. So that's what the channel turned into and has stayed in that vein with adding of social commentary because I'm a huge history buff. So I was like, oh, I would love to infuse Black history into the channel as well. So the channel has pretty much stayed in that vein.
Wow. And you've been at it since like, what'd you say,
2020? Yeah, so it's been 2 full years. Yeah, it's been, well, I think, what's the channel anniversary? I think it's August 6th, I think.
Wow.
So yeah, it's exciting.
What has been some fascinating things you've seen from like getting to see other content creators and going through contract processes that you were just like, do y'all really not know? Wait, hold up. Y'all don't know? Wait, what? Hold up. You know what I mean? Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching/listening to our first episode of season 2 of the Trying to Be Somebody podcast. If you are watching us on YouTube, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to this video. That really helps us out algorithmically. Likewise, wherever you're listening to us, please rate us there. 5 stars is preferred, but we understand if you want to give us some constructive criticism. We're always here for that. If you want to take things a step further, consider joining the Patreon, patreon.com/Hallease. There you get early access to these podcast episodes, exclusive content, merch, and more. It's a good time. And finally, if you're interested, when I'm not here on this podcast, hosting or creating content, I teach. I teach classes on Skillshare all around everything I've learned as a video producer, digital storyteller, and creative artist. Check out my classes if you want to learn more. I will put a link in the description box and the show notes, and potentially get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare where you can potentially take all of my classes that I have on there and then dip. No judgment either way, okay? Now, let's get back to Stephanie. I am so excited because in this next session of the podcast, we really go deep into contracts. Again, this is such an important part of being an artist and being a creative. And I know a lot of times as artists and creatives, we tend to think, well, it's all about the making and the doing. But no, the artists that have the longevity, the artists that make a full career of what they do, they have learned to balance this out of understanding the legalese of how to know exactly what they are and are not doing within the scope of a project, and also the creative side. So I'm so excited because, we're going to be dropping mad gems for the rest of the podcast. Let's get into it.
It has been like really interesting to me in that a lot of content creators are, how do I say this? Just accepting what, like in the legal field, we call like boilerplate terms. So where the company's like, you're going to do the sponsorship, I'm going to give you this necklace, whatever, and you can't change anything. And it's like, yeah, you can. It's a contract. They'll send you the PDF. So lawyers will do this when we don't want to go back and forth with red lines. And I used to do this. You send the opposing counsel a PDF. You're like, just sign this. I'm not dealing with you. All you have to do is do word conversion and then mark it up in red lines, or ask them like, hey, I noticed you sent me a PDF. However, I read it and there are some things that we need to discuss. So please send me the word version so they know. You can always push back with them. So the first initial thing of a lot of content creators I saw being like, oh yeah, I just accept the terms. Never accept the terms. You've given stuff away. You're signing up for stuff. Just keeping the in perpetuity language to me, which perpetuity is forever, that was like mind boggling. I was like, why? Never. No one is paying you forever money. I mean, maybe they are, but most likely they're not.
Because I think the fear that people have, especially like BIPOC artists and creatives on the content creation side, I think the fear is like messing up a potential opportunity to get a foot in the door, just anything like that. For you, have you gotten sponsorships and then pushed back and it be okay? Or
Yeah, for sure. So I've done one sponsorship, which we had like a long-term sponsorship. So we did one initial try and then we did a few others with this financial publication, which was great. Particularly since I cover student loans. I was like, oh, this is great synergies. And I had actually been following their publication for years. So it was funny. But what was interesting is they had a new product coming out, to which I was like, no, I'm not selling that. I was like, we can do the student loan stuff. Like, no. And I was like, oh, no, thank you. I'm not interested in that. And they're like, oh, why? And I was like, well, my constituents, my subscribers are not going to be interested in that. And to be very frank, I don't necessarily see the usefulness of that product. And I'm not going to peddle nonsense to people. And they're like, okay, that's fine. And I think it's all about like setting the tone and like the boundaries with people. Then they know like, okay, it's fine. And they're not going to take it personally. And I always look at things as like lots of people tell them no. Like you're not the first person telling them no, even though you're the only person you can see, which is like, this is my boundary. I don't want that. Or like, hey, you offered $200, but the amount of work that this is actually going to take, the sponsorship should really be $1,000. Just send the itemization. You don't have to go and say like, hey, I really appreciate it and fall on your sword and all that. Be like, no, it costs this and this and this for the editing, all that. So $1,000 is more in the appropriate ballpark. And I find that when you take out the fluff of it, then it's usually fine. Because you never want to be doing all that work for pennies and then be mad about it.
Right. No, that's a very good point. Here's a question I have. Like, so I get people asking me, other content creators asking me a lot about like, what should I charge for this? I don't know what to charge for this. The advice, I don't want to see if you agree or do not agree with the advice I generally give people is I tell people, well, what video were you going to make for them originally? Think very critically about how much time it takes you to write said video, film said video, edit said video. Imagine that you'll have to do a revision or two of said video. Figure out how much that time that would take, and then figure out the fraction of what that video is like over your monthly cost of living. And that is how
Ooh.
much you should charge for that video.
Mm-hmm.
So I base it on like, what are your needs to survive in this capitalist economy?
Yeah.
And then figure out the ratio of how much that time it takes. And then that is what you get. So if it takes a week of your time and you know it costs X amount of dollars to live and survive, obviously not be rolling in dough, but just like live and survive for a month. And you know a week of that month is going to be this video. Okay, so how much does
Yeah.
it cost you to live for a week? You
Yeah.
know,
I
charge
think
that. I
that's
don't know. Like, I'm
great.
like, start there. I don't know. You know?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. One of the things that I found really interesting too with things that other creators were doing, I was like, we're not doing this. And I made sure to put it in my contract. I'm like, I'm never doing this, is revisions. I'm like, there are no revisions. There are no revisions.
Oh,
There's no feedback. I get the payment up front. And then I told them, I think we did 4 videos together, and I'll continue this with my next sponsors as well. Listen, half of it's due up front. I'm not even gonna start the video
yeah.
till you give me the half that's due up front. And then I just send them the link, like, hey, the rest of the video is posted. Let me know when the payment is sent. And that's it. And they're fine with that. I'm like, why do you
Wow.
need to see the entirety of the content? I think particularly for Black and brown creators, because if you have content like my content, a lot of the times is talking about history, talking about race, talking about systemic racism and different issues. If your sponsor is like this corporation that is very uncomfortable with those things, they're going to be like, oh, can you change it? No, the history didn't change. I cannot change it. And the only thing applying to you is this 30 seconds where I said, buy the water. It's lovely. Okay. That's it. What do you need to see? And my game plan is when I start getting other sponsors, if they push back, is to let them know, like, hey, you can do revision with your 45 seconds of where I'm saying your name. The rest of it, you don't need to see. I'm not sending it to you. It has nothing to do with you.
Wow.
And
Y'all.
that to me, I think like helps with the integrity, also helps with managing your time, because I think a lot of people, and definitely myself, didn't realize how much effort goes into a YouTube video in terms of
Mm-hmm.
you have to write out the script, or I do like bullet points, and I do like kind of like my research into like a whole like research brief is kind of like how I do it. You have to do that. You have to film, like depending on like what type of aesthetics you like, you have to get ready, like you have to, like, the editing for me is like a huge chore, and we've talked about this. The editing alone, I'm like, I'm charging y'all double because I have to edit this. Like, if they want to edit it, sure, be my guest. They never do. So
No.
that, and I think definitely charging in terms of like the cost of how much a week would cost you, I think that's more than fair.
Yeah.
That's more than fair, particularly if you can show them the click-through rate of things. Like my click-through
Mm.
rate for my sponsorship, since it was very much aligned, it was about as a financial publication. They also have student loan services where you can, they refer you to refinancing. And so I was like, oh, this is a student loan video. These people they are all paying their student loans. The click-through rate
Right.
was super high. So they were surprised the click-through rate was high. And that's when I knew. I was like, oh, I charged too little. I charged too
So,
little.
ooh. So here, question. See,
Yeah.
here's my struggle is something I've struggled with contracts recently is I want to see the click-through rate data. But depending on whatever marketing institution, because like here's something I think people don't realize is like most of these companies that you're seeing, like let's for example, I am not sponsored by them in any way, but I'm just going to use them as an example. When you see people like this video is sponsored by Squarespace, and you think, oh, these people are like directly talking to someone from Squarespace, and I am not sure if they are or aren't, but they probably aren't. Knowing my own experience
Mm-hmm.
with how sponsorships work, they probably aren't. They're probably working with a marketing company who
Yep.
Squarespace has given a large sum of money to then
Mm-hmm.
disseminate to content creators to keep Squarespace on our mind.
Mm-hmm.
through content creation, which no shade, amazing. Some Squarespace, talk to me. But like, I have StumbleWell.com is a Squarespace.
We're here.
But like, that's what's happening. And the way I feel like that is a negotiation tactic that you can have to potentially charge more, is knowing what your click-through rate is. But usually most of these types of like combinations, they give you a link to use and you don't get to see what it
Yeah.
is. You know what I mean? Like, they know, but they
Yeah, and
don't
they're not giving
necessarily
it to
share
you.
it.
The last one that I did, I used my own Bitly link. So I had all of it, but I also was there for sponsorship as a company. So they're like, we've been doing this by ourselves. What I've been noticing as like a smaller creator, I think I'm at like 38,000 today. What I've noticed is in myself as well was I was very much like, oh, I would love a Squarespace sponsorship, or I would love what is that cheap wine? Trader Joe's wine or whatever, like, a big name that like people are used to. However, the smaller places, because there is such a better match, like in a synergy between your content, if it's like specific content for certain things, they will pay
Yeah.
more and they're easier to deal with. Like my dealing with them was like very easy because it's like an actual person. It's the owner. They don't have agency money to hire like a marketing company or marketing agency. So you get a little bit more control, I've noticed, because everyone I've talked to that has like the larger sponsorships, because it is an agency running it, they have their own processes. They are like, hey, this is the link. I'm sure like maybe you could negotiate and ask them to use maybe your Bitly link so that way you can see it. Like, oh, hey, I'll give it to you, but I can see everything already. So at least I'm not
Yeah.
like arguing with you. Because from my understanding, a lot of the non-payment conversations or this is such an awful sponsorship, like content on YouTube stems from issues with the agencies, where the agency is like, we're in the third party. Sometimes they go out of business. I've seen creators where the agency has gone out of business and they don't get paid. So now they're calling the actual company, the sponsor. The sponsor's like, I don't know you. You didn't sign a contract
Yeah.
with me. I don't know. We hired them. Our contract with them ended and it turns into a commotion. So I find like the smaller places, it seems to be a little more seamless
That's
and less stress.
fascinating.
So
Yeah.
that's my strategy for sponsorships moving forward. Like I would love to work with like small and medium-sized businesses.
I love that. I also think like there's just so much in contracts that now that I've been in it for a while, like for example, I mean, I'm sure someone like you will be hard pressed to ever hire a lawyer to like review your contracts for you. Yes or no? Am I wrong?
I would say it would depend on which kinds. Like an influencer
Okay.
contract is like super simple. I would say if somebody was ever licensing my content, I would probably get like a colleague to look over like my work because they always say a
Okay.
lawyer that has themselves for a client is a fool. So just in case, that's what always lawyers say to each other, and it's like, listen, I'm not a fool. So I'm always happy for someone else to look over it just to double check, like, hey, make sure I didn't miss anything. It's probably like unlikely because like I'm a transactional lawyer, that's what I do. But like it can't hurt. I also have like colleagues that would do it for me on a discount because we've been friends for so long.
Sure.
So that it's not cost prohibitive in my end, but also certain things. What I've noticed is just acceptance of when you don't have the expertise in something. So of being like, hey, I understand the mechanics of this. However, this is a niche thing. Can you look at this for me? I'm very much big on as long as you have the understanding, then you can ask for the help when you don't particularly know the nuances of something. So that's what I always try to like be super honest with myself about that.
Ooh, that's hard. I know for me, like, it's been over the years that I've slowly gained the language and understanding of at least knowing how to look at an influencer contract. Like, I think contracts in general just scare everybody.
Yeah,
When really, at the end of the day, all a contract is an agreement of
exactly.
what everyone involved has decided to do.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
am paying you X amount of dollars to do this thing, and in return, that's how we're rolling. So that way, if there's ever a dispute, we can come back to a unified document and review it and be like, oh, dang, you were right. Okay. Well,
Exactly.
but I feel like when you look at a contract in general, especially if you're someone who has like no legal, I don't know, language understanding, vernacular, nomenclature, it's just scary. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
it's so just terrifying. What are like a few terms that you think people just need to know? Because I don't think influencers, regardless of your size, I don't think you necessarily need, I mean, you should have some sort of lawyer you can reach out to, but you should be more or less able to look at your own contracts that you're getting and be like, no. You know what I mean? Like, I
Mhm.
don't know why I
Mhm.
want to say no to that, but I want to say no to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I completely agree. You should be able to look at your own contracts and be able to say, even if you don't understand fully, be able to say, hey, section 2A, can you walk me through this a bit? How does this work at your company? That's a great way to tell somebody, I don't fully understand, but you explain it to me. So that
Yeah.
way they know, like, hey, oh wow, Hallease read this, so Hallease is in the know. I can't bamboozle Hallease. She told me what section. She wants me to know like what exactly this means. That's a good way to not like show somebody that you don't necessarily know. And lawyers do that all the time. They're like, can you walk me through this this specific thing? And that I always like pull with people if I'm like, why did you write this way? Like this doesn't make sense to me. But can you walk me through your thought process on this? I would say the biggest thing, particularly for content creators, is the perpetuity language because a lot of legalese is old English that nobody uses except for lawyers. And it's very irritating, in my opinion. One of the reasons why the legal profession is very much a gatekeeping profession and is nonsensical is to keep people in the dark. It should just be written in plain English. And I try to adjust the contracts that I'd work on into plain English so that way the few times that I have clients, I don't usually do consultations. I don't really have clients. I'll put that out there because people always ask. Um, the few times when I do that, perpetuity means forever. So what a lot of these companies will do is, okay, Stephanie, we're going to sponsor you for these earrings. So these earrings I got as a gift, which were really pretty from Black on Brand and Golden Hippie, I think. So, say we were doing a sponsorship, most of the companies will put in perpetuity language. Will say, "Okay, you're gonna make me a reel for Instagram, and you're gonna put it on your page. I'm gonna put it on my page. Maybe we'll put it as a short on YouTube. I'm gonna give you, let's say they have a lot of money, and I'm worth money. I'm gonna give you $2,000." So the language would be, okay, how long does this have to live on my page? 2 months, 3 months, 4 months? In the default language, I've noticed a lot of companies will put like in perpetuity forever. $2,000 is not enough money for forever. That's not enough money for forever. So I would automatically, Google Docs is like super easy to use, but if you use Word like me, because I like Word, just Control F and search the word perpetuity to make sure, like, if that's in the document, you flag that. You can highlight it, put it in a comment, push back to the other side, like, hey, what is this? Like, if you want this content licensed for forever, that's a different fee than what we talked about. I would say that's the number one thing. And then also knowing how the hell to get out of an agreement. It is kind of crazy to me. I've seen a lot of influencer contracts because people will start putting their contracts online now where they're like, so and so didn't pay me. I'm upset. And they just start putting screenshots in the video, in the stories, whatever. And nowhere in the contract is there any termination language. Well, I don't like you.
Oh.
You don't like me. How are we getting out of this? When there's no termination language, not that you'll automatically end up in court, but it is very hard to argue with someone and say, hey, I'm allowed to get out of this agreement. I'm not doing this with you. So you always want to just Control F, make sure there's termination language. For cause means breach of contract. Not for cause just means like, I just don't want to do it. Or maybe the company all of a sudden has like a bad reputation. Maybe you're doing a water sponsorship. The water is full of E. coli and you're like, oh, absolutely not. Not doing this. You want to get out of it. You're like, I gotta go. I'm not doing this. So you always want to see that. And then I would say make the deliverables are 100% in the creator's control. And a
Oh,
lot of
definitely.
times the company will make the deliverables very vague. Like when my sponsorships are like, oh, we just want you to do a video. And I was like, I'm doing a video. You are getting 30 to 45 seconds in said video. Like I'm not talking about this longer than that. This is where the placement will go. Maybe they want it at the beginning. That's important to them. Well, it should say that, like it has to be in the first minute. I would make the deliverables super exact to your liking. If they're in a way where you're like, no, I don't want to do that, then just remove it.
Yeah.
Just remove it and then argue it. It's better to argue about the deliverables in the beginning. From my understanding, a lot of companies will send the deliverables after you sign the contract, which I find to be a huge red flag. They're like, oh, hey, yeah, so we signed it. These are all the things that the specs that we want in the video. And it's like, no, I need to know in the beginning. So that way I know whether or not I can give all these things to you.
That's fascinating. I haven't seen that happen. Maybe it's just because I don't know if I wonder if it is because I give off a certain vibe of like, so is this 4K? Is this 1080p? What y'all need? Like, I'm already talking to them about a lot of
There you
that
go.
stuff, like in informal conversation. Contract haven't been sent yet. You know what I'm saying? And we're just like having a lot of those conversations. What's interesting to hear you talk about the things that you pay attention to as a lawyer versus me, what I pay attention to when I'm looking at a contract for the first time. The first thing I looked at is the effective date and when the contract will be done by their standards. And I make sure that we actually are aligned for how long this will take. Because I've
Yeah.
noticed that sometimes we are
Schedule.
not aligned. Like they think, and not because they're trying to trap me, but they think the project will take X amount of time. Like it'll only take a week or a month or a couple months. When it's like, no, this is like genuinely a short documentary. We're going to be filming probably over the next couple months. Then there's going to be revisions. Then there's going to be this. This contract actually needs to be for like 6 months, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's how
Yeah.
long y'all going to be knowing me.
Yeah. That's a good point
then-
because you have the expectation setting is a good point.
Yeah. Because a lot of companies also don't know production. Like they just don't know what they're actually signing up for. And so then the other thing that I look on is usually it's called like Exhibit A or the addendum, and it's towards the end. And yeah, that's where usually the deliverables are of what they want me to then produce to them. And usually a lot of times I do have to like actually update it and put things in there because they don't actually know what they want.
It's very
Like-
vague. Like we call it like a
Very
statement of
vague.
work. The SOW always has the deliverables. And sometimes I've read like people's SOWs, even when like I practiced and was in tech, we would buy services from another company. We're like, okay, we're gonna buy services, just outsource this. And I'm like, what is this person doing all day? It just says that they're here 40 hours. Like, what are they doing? Like, what team are they working for? Like, what exactly are the deliverables for this consultant? They're like, well, we want to keep it broad. And I was like, and they will do what? Like, if this was me and I was a person that said this, I'd be like, yeah, I did all my stuff today. I was here. Y'all didn't tell me what exactly I had to do. I did what I wanted to do, and it's done. So,
Dude. Oof. Ooh. And then I know the other thing I pay attention to when I'm looking at a contract, I go and find these things, is the payment terms.
yes.
That's the
Can we
first
talk
thing
about
I really
the payment terms?
like payment terms. So like, do I get paid? I try to not let it go over net 30. I don't know about you, but I usually do a half up front whenever
Yep,
possible.
same.
There are some projects that I've had where I was like, I understand why half up front just isn't something that we're going to do for this. But I usually request half up front and then sending the next invoice at conclusion. Thankfully, I've gotten to a point where most of the projects I'm working on, like sponsored videos and things like that, they're already like, we already have been doing this for a minute, so here's how we're going to pay you out. It's going to be monthly. It's going to be this. We just need to see that you are unlisted the video and it's up so we can, you know what I mean? And your
Yeah.
check will be in the mail, which is great. But with like traditional client work, I usually do a half up front or like some sort of 2 to 3 payment plan. Like
Yeah.
upon signature of this, send the first invoice kind of thing.
Yep.
But yeah, I got friends that be like net 90 and I'm like,
the net 90
bruh.
girls give me anxiety. I don't know.
I'm like, how are you living? How are you living?
I don't know how groceries are being bought with net 90. It's very stressful. It's
Imagine
very
imagine finishing a project in March and not getting it until and not getting paid anything from it until June.
No.
Imagine.
That's unnecessary.
Imagine.
And also because there are a lot of people that inherently don't like any types of confrontation. I'm confrontational, so I'm not one of those people. But I've had a lot of friends that I've had to like coach through this, which is like, I don't want confrontation. And I'm like, it's your paycheck. You would never let your traditional corporate job wait 3 months to give you your check. Never. You would never do that. You would go down to the mayor's office and be like, so-and-so is running a sweatshop. You would
For real.
complain.
And it's not also, I think, again, to me, this is like stuff I really had to work through again as a Black person, like managing myself, is that it's not confrontation. It's
Yes.
just communicating.
Yes, exactly.
That's all we're
Exactly.
doing.
And
We're
the
just
person is
communicating.
expecting it. They're expecting the pushback. They might act shocked
yeah.
with you, but they're expecting it because it's not.
yeah.
It's nonsensical. Net 90 is the most nonsensical thing
It's
I've ever seen in my
like,
life.
Especially now that I've run my own creative business for a while, it is more stressful to have money that you know you need to pay a vendor and you're just waiting for them to send the invoice. Like if you're running your business at least decently, just like semi okay, it is stressful to look in your company's account and know that a certain percentage of that isn't actually the company's. It's someone else
Mm-hmm.
and you're just waiting for that check to go out. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Cuz you like can't plan. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Exactly.
Maybe
Exactly.
I'm
So I
wrong.
would, no, you're right. Please let us all, nobody, net 30, half up front is what I do as well. I do half up front and then because I just like to try it and see what happens. And then I tell them the second half is due in 15 days of posting the video,
Oh,
which that has worked fine. I don't think I'm going to get away with it with everyone. But
sure.
again, nothing hurts an ask. The worst they're going to say is no. I'm like, okay, cool, fine,
Yeah.
whatever. But net 90 is not industry standard. It is not normal. Also, companies that are trying to push that, they will say, this is the industry standard, to which you can push back and say, actually, the companies I've worked with previously, we all did net 30 and just shame them. One of the things that I'm so glad I made this mistake with a decent human being, so a smaller business, and I would have, if
Sure.
I'd done this with a corporation, would have ended really bad, was I would never, don't tell anybody that that's your first sponsorship. Because they're gonna
Oh,
know that
yeah.
they're gonna think that you don't have any sense and you don't know. And I told my first one, I was like, oh, I'm so excited, it's my first sponsorship. I should have never said that. Which was interesting because we had no negotiation on the fee. I asked for what I thought was a lot of money, and they were like, yes. And I was like, fuck, wasn't enough money. Wasn't enough money. He said yes so quickly, and I was like, oh man. And then the second video we did, I asked for more money, same quick yes. And I was like, I'm still asking for too little. Confusion. So we'll have a talk about it. And I'm like, how much money do y'all think you should pay me? Because this is interesting. This has gotten very interesting to me now.
That's something I start off with most companies now too is like whether they realize it or not, they have a budget in mind. I was recently helping a creator like how to figure out how to get the budget question going with them.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because it was like this company, it was a well-known airline, but like they were moving to content creation in-house. And so they were like, we just hired this person on. This is a completely new position. We actually really don't know. And like, we now need to talk to somebody to now know. So then we can like know what our budget should be for like the next fiscal year. Like I'm about to go into the fiscal year meeting and I need to know how much to ask to now then be able to have content creators on. So tell me, like it was one of those. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
you're in a very interesting position. Aim high. You know, like, tell
Like,
them
ask for everything.
$1 million. Ask
You're
for
like, I heard
everything.
so and so airline is paying 1.5. So
Right.
be
Which
competitive.
no, but like I was just like, this is a very interesting position. Like, don't lie. Don't
Yeah.
lie and get trapped somewhere that
Yeah.
you're just bummed. You know what I mean? And it's just like,
Exactly. And I've watched a lot of, I would say the lifestyle section of YouTube, they probably do the most sponsorships in terms of volume. So
yeah,
I love to watch their stuff in terms of like, what's the barometer? Because they're used to the sponsorship conversation and a lot of them are very transparent about it. So particularly who did it? Hilo Lux, I think her name is Janae that runs that channel, Monroe Steele, and then Karen Britchick did a 3-part series where they talked about their sponsorships. And they were very transparent in terms of like what they ask, what they find the terms to be, and how they felt when they realized that they made exceptions for certain companies because they wanted the name. They were like, oh, I just really want to work with this person. So they're paying me less than my usual rate. And I'm just going to do it. And they said every single time they did that, they were like, oh, what was the purpose of this? And they just felt like bummed afterwards. So it's not,
yeah.
the name is not paying rent.
It's really
The
not.
name is not paying the rent check. So I think that's always something to consider. And which is why in my mind, I've kind of said it as like, oh, I want to work with a reputable company. Like as a lawyer, I want to make sure I'm within the ethical realm. And as somebody who's like, capitalism is full of shit and is screwing all of us. I'm like, is it a decent person behind this thing that I'm saying? Because that to me would be like, oh crap, here we go. Incoming bland YouTube apology video. I'm like, I didn't know. I had to pay my rent. I had no idea.
Have you ever had an experience of where you actually had to walk away from an opportunity because you read the contract and like couldn't find just the common ground. I've had to do that with an opportunity. Like, there's a reason why it's taken a while for shows to come up for y'all, because I've been given opportunities, or what I thought were opportunities, and then reading the contract was like, I'm sorry, what? This actually isn't an opportunity. This is a loan.
It's like, what are
This
we
is a
doing?
loan. I can't. Why would I take a loan if I could just fund it? That's why I came to you. You know what I'm saying? So have you gone through? I'll talk about that in a second. But have you gone through?
Yeah. I was speaking with, I think like last year, because I do basically like edutainment with wine,
Yeah.
I would say. And this company reached out to me that does education, basically like online learnings. They wanted me to build out like these modules. It was really cool. And I was like, oh, I'm super excited about this. Would be awesome. But the way they had set up the contract was like a perpetual license. And I was like, like I wouldn't even truthfully do a perpetual license with Disney. And Disney is like a reputable company. Like there's something about perpetual as a lawyer. I'm like, color me a commitment phobe. It's not happening. Like, I don't know. Like we have to revisit this every few years. Like I don't like the
Something,
idea of perpetual. And they were very much like, no, we can't change that. It has to be this way. And I was like, okay, well, if we were going to maybe do it, then what is the cost? Because the cost for perpetual is not the cost we discussed. And they were like, no, it would be the same. And I was like, no, this is not working. This is not going to happen. And I think it would have been like really cool to have like,
Yeah.
you know, some modules that can be like, oh, like this is good. And their pricing in terms of the customer was really fair. Like it wasn't completely free, but it was like very nominal versus like a college course is expensive. So that was kind of a letdown. But yeah, you definitely have to read the contract because sometimes you just bind yourself to something. You're just like, I don't know about this. I've also had other things where they were interesting and they just want to give you equity. And I was like, I've worked in tech. I've worked in a Series A company. If it goes belly up, I get nothing. Like, again, what is paying my rent today? What is paying my rent? So I was like, this is not going to work.
That's a good point. You really do have to think about like where you are right now and what you need. It doesn't usually behoove you to try to think long term too much in regards to just like, oh, like letting perpetuity happen and things like that. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I've been letting perpetuity happen a long time. So, you know, I need to work on me. I need to work on me.
Say no. Say no.
You know, God's still working on me, but you are reinforcing that I need to work on that in my
Because you
contracts.
can get more. You can get, unless it's like, I've known other creators that have done deals with like large streaming services. And so like their legal team, they push back on everything. They're like, you want to mark, I told them, I was like, mark out the perpetuity in there. Just see what they say. And they're like, no, we're not changing it. It's like, okay, ask for $3,000 more. And they're like, okay. And I was like, what'd they say? They're like, they said it's fine. And I was like, damn, we should ask for more money. So it then becomes like, if you're keeping perpetuity in, now we're having a money conversation, which is what is my forever worth? Like we're all aging like fine wine. Like I'm worth more money every month. So we need to have a real conversation then.
That's blowing my mind because
so go back. You can always amend your contracts.
Okay, hold up. That's a word. Wait a minute. Hold up. What you mean amend? Hit me.
You can always reach out to like long-term partners and say, hey, I know we did that sponsorship last year. This year I am trying to plan out my sponsors for this year. I really loved working with you. Why don't we do another sponsorship or whatever the arrangement was? And also, when you send the amendment and extension document to them, you also put in, oh, we are amending section 2A for in perpetuity, we're removing it. And when you explain to them like, oh, I know we agreed to perpetuity before, but since we are continuing our relationship and my fees have changed, I think it would be better for both of us to remove this. They push back and say, okay, well, this is actually my new licensing scheme. Scheme is the word you use in legal. It sounds like bad, like you're scheming, but like that's the way it's set up. This is my new licensing structure that I'm currently doing. I find like it works very well. It's very equitable for all parties involved. But yeah, you can always like go back. And I've amended some of my contracts where I'm like, you know what? I thought about this and let's just change this a little bit. Like our relationship has changed or things like that. I've noticed even when I worked in corporate, it was interesting. Different companies we would have like long-standing partnerships with. And I was like, this document predates me, but this document is expired. So now we have to redo this because we have a working relationship and no legal contract in place right now. Checking if you have auto renewal, which I don't think, at least from what I've seen, it's usually not in influencer
Yeah.
agreements where things auto renew. It can be helpful to have an auto renewal of like just the main document of the legal terms. So if you're like, me and Hulu are going to have a long term relationship, I'll just let it auto renew for 5 years. Like, it doesn't mean that the SOW is auto renewing, but you can just auto renew the master services agreement if you want. Kind of is like a little bit easier if the terms are favorable. If they're not favorable, then 30 days before the auto renewal, you say, like, hey, by the way, again, I don't like that perpetuity language. Let's amend this. You can always revisit the conversation. I find is like super useful with people.
I'm gonna need to revisit some conversations, y'all.
Listen,
Like, for real, for real.
go get your
For real,
money.
for
Go
real.
get your money.
I just feel like there are so many things. So, like, for example, I'm gonna tell you a story of how I got. I think, unfortunately, at times you learn very hard and painful lessons through legal, especially when you're doing it for yourself. And so I'm gonna give y'all an example, and y'all can roast me in the comments. But I'm gonna give y'all an example. So when I was producing the show, we have produced 3 episodes, and I was trying to find different contractors to work with. So as y'all, if you may or may not have seen, the show has like a crew of around 10-ish people, including myself, right? And all those people have their own contracting agreement. My production company has its own standard contractor agreement that I would say we have like pulled from another lawyer who like just kind of gave us one and then adjusted accordingly to work, like, oh, if anything goes to courts, it's in the state of Texas, not in the state of I think the lawyer was like in Delaware or something like that. Just a lot of that kind of stuff. Like, you don't need to reinvent the wheel, I think, on a lot of this kind of stuff. But anyway,
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
And I was doing something because most of the contractors I work with want to be booked and blessed, So I would send the contract over with the language adjusted and everything for that specific contractor, but I would already have it countersigned.
Oh, I know.
I knew your face.
This hurt my spirit. Oh.
And here's the struggle. You're trying to move things along.
Mm-hmm.
And so you start making not even mistakes, you start getting lazy.
Mm-hmm.
When I tell you that came to almost bite me in the booty of a contractor who we were working through figuring out what the company was going to pay them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they just had a really bad experience with another production company they had worked with, because the things they were requesting were so specific that it was like, ooh, you've been hurt. Oh, baby.
Mm-hmm.
You need to take a nap. You've been hurt. Take your time. Because Austin's film industry is rough. But yeah, I eventually was like, you know what? Unfortunately, I don't think this is going to work out because you're just charging too much and you're requesting things that I've never had to do for this type of engagement with this type of contractor in this field for production. So I'm just going to pass on you, and I'm sorry. But, obviously I'll recommend you to other people. I know you do good work. Mm-hmm. When I tell you this person was went up the email thread to where I had sent the countersigned already contract and resent an email from there and then sent it in, and was like, I'm going to take you to small claims court because you've already countersigned. And then this was
extort you.
And then threatened to extort me. It was a when I tell you I called on God to not curse this person out in an email thread.
God wouldn't have.
Well, I mean, what did
my mouth is quicker than my call to God.
I had to take like a whole hour and a half. I was actually on my way driving to Austin for other stuff, and I had to take the whole drive up. Chris is driving now. He was just like, we are in silence. And I was like, yes, we are. Cause I got to figure out what I'm finna say to this person, knowing full well, they actually don't have any legal standing for what they're about to trying to do, because they haven't even actually agreed to the terms yet officially. But
they would have been better off signing it and then being like, we haven't agreed. I mean, if you're going to scam, don't scam.
Then scam.
Then go all the way with it. I mean, just
all
do
the
what you
way. It was fascinating. But yeah, I basically had to then be like, so per my last email, here is why you can't do that. A, B, C, D, E.
And
And then
also now I'm going to shame you everywhere to everyone I know.
oh, I mean, there are close like production friends I have where I was just like, just pause. If you decide to work with this person, just pause. Because I'm not trying. Here's my struggles. I'm not trying to prevent anyone from getting. I know when it's hard to get. Like, I don't know.
No. Oh,
It was
no.
very fascinating, but also at the same time, I was like, "Ooh, learn that lesson."
Yeah, don't countersign. But
Point of the story,
also,
y'all. Don't
don't
countersign.
extort people.
One thing I did do that I like at the end of that email was like, so this ends our I think my last sentence was like, this ends our direct correspondence. Anything further, let me an email. Like a lawyer will contact you.
I like that. This ends our correspondence. I'm
Like,
not.
this ends our direct correspondence.
Ooh, I
We
like
will
that.
now communicate through lawyers, so you can have your lawyer contact me. Because
What
like,
awful, wretched person.
it was a mess. I was like, you had a bad year, and it shows.
One of the best things I found about being on YouTube is there are a lot of well-meaning people that are willing to walk you through whatever their area of expertise is, which is
Ooh.
super helpful. Now, I'll caveat this and say you shouldn't go on the internet with the mind of getting legal advice. However, like someone telling you the practicality of this is how a contract works, everyone should know how to create their own contract. Are you going to know the ins and outs of indemnification? Probably not, and that's totally fine. But you should know, like, how do you get out of it? When do you get paid? What's the effective date, to Hallease's point? What are the deliverables? One of the things I find really interesting, and that key man provisions, which are very, like, corporate specific, but I think would probably come up in, like, a production sense, which are, like, key man provisions in the corporate sense are, I'm only working here at this company on this project if I work for Hallease. We have a great relationship. I think this project will fail without her. I'm not working for anyone else. I would assume, like, in a production sense, like, maybe you're one of those types of people, like, you know what? I know everyone else in this crew be a pain in my ass, but I really want to work with Hallease. So as long as Hallease is there, I'll stay. But if she gets out of her contract, me too, I'm leaving. I would think, like, that's, like, important. So you can add anything to a contract. It's just writing of an agreement. That's all it is.
Right.
So if there's something that's super important to you and maybe it's super niche, like, no, I need this, I will sleep better at night, ask for it. But if you start asking for too much, people might be like, child, what's wrong over here?
Okay, so I remember I was in the talks to put together a travel series. I had produced a proof of concept pilot of an idea, and I'd like self-funded that. And it was fascinating getting the contracts for that potential thing because they basically wanted me to do another proof of concept to like prove that the thing would really work, like with actual budget. Because the original proof of concept was like, I think I maybe spent $1,000. It was on like stock footage and things like that just to tell the story better. And this was my first soiree into like I would say more substantial contracts because I just started StumbleWell. I had just left my full-time agency job. I had like just done that stuff. And so I wasn't dealing with contracts as much now, like I am now. And I had the foresight to be like, this is like a contract, I'm going to read this. I'm going to read this one. But also, I'm actually going to pay for a lawyer for an hour because I know there's enough money involved where it actually makes sense to pay a lawyer to help me with this. Just make sure I'm not missing something. And so I sent it to an entertainment lawyer that I knew through another content creator. It was her ex-husband, actually. And we got on the phone and did like an hour. And he was like, and I had come into it being like, I'm going to ask him about this and this and this and this, right? And then he was the one that was like, sure, yeah, I mean, all that. Glad you're looking at it. That's great. But he was the one that was like, they want you to pay them back if they don't pick it up, though. Did you read that part? And I was like, wait, what? He was like, section? Like, he went down to it. He was like, right here. And I was just like, because again, to your point, the language, I kind of had seen it, but I hadn't really gotten it. And he was like, yeah. And he was like, unless I'm not understanding what this contract is saying correctly, they're saying if for some reason they don't pick up this show idea, you need to pay them back. And I was like, wait, so this contract is a loan? And he was like, yeah. He was like, in so few words, I don't know if I'd say it's a loan, but he was like, in so few words, that's what they're saying. And so I ended up getting on the phone with them and was like, yeah, so I'm not signing this yet because we need to talk about this part. And they were like, well, we're a nonprofit entity. We need to be responsible with constituents' money. So if we don't actually bring an idea to full fruition, then like we need that money back. And I was like, but why would I come to you if I had it. And they were like, well, we always pick up, like, they were like, we've never not picked up this show. And I was like, but what if I'm the first time?
Exactly. This is a great point, though, about your oral conversations. There, on every single good contract, there is a section at the end that says, this contractual agreement will replace any oral conversations, prior writings, blah, 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 blah. And this is just what it is. So had they not picked it up, and you would have been like, okay, but you said that you always pick it up. So, like, I'm not paying this. And they were like, no, but our contract said. So, the money back, please.
Bruh. What was very fascinating, too, is, like, I think it was like someone on the producing team was there, and then the lawyer. And the lawyer was like, I mean, we do this in every contract. And I was like, and that's great. That's a blessing for whoever those other people are that are signing this.
Exactly.
But I was like, if I had the money, why would I sign this? Like, I'm coming to you because I don't have it.
Exactly.
So why would I? And I could see him just being like, she's not wrong. You know what I mean? Like, there was a level of privilege that he hadn't, like, had to... I could tell he hadn't had to register. I think most people had just done it, you know?
And hoped and prayed that.
And hoped and prayed.
Which, no. You can't hope and pray with a contract. You just write in what you want. There's no need.
Prayers, guys.
There's no need for the hopes and prayers in the contract. You could just write it in. You just write it in, remove it. Oh, no. So what I'm understanding is people in production are just like, whatever, let's see what happens. We're going to try it.
Ooh, this is a good point. I think artists in general are so excited for the opportunity to make their work that you're so excited that someone's finally even just giving you that hit of external validation of like, I have been working hard. This is something I want. That you overlook things that you really shouldn't overlook.
The music contracts all read like that, because that's always the number one comment whenever we do any music contract review of, well, now everyone's talked about it all this time. They should be reading their contracts, and people seem to have very little empathy or understanding. And I'm like, when you have been trying to do something for so long and somebody that has perceived success tells you like, I'm gonna back you, you got it. Yeah, most people will be like, all right, sign on the dotted line. Let's see what happens. And then when it doesn't end well.
Yeah, because I mean, like, if you think about it, you think about the path of an artist in general, especially like Black people of color in general, artists, you have to be struggling for a long time if you ever make it at all.
Yeah.
And so it's a different frame of mind coming into any sort of contract negotiations. And you have to actively combat that feeling of like, if I don't sign this, will anyone else ever give me a shot? And I can firmly say, yes, they will.
Yes.
I have lived it. They will definitely. Someone else will see the value in you, and they will probably be actually better by the time they reach you. And they won't let you do stuff like that because, oh my God.
Exactly. It's always pays to advocate for yourself from a place of understanding and knowing your worth versus then a place of fear, because the regret once you sign it, what if it's like not even worth it? And then you've talked yourself into this thing that you can't get out of.
I could talk to Stephanie about the legal for hours and hours and hours, but nevertheless, I think this podcast has come to its end. So without putting yourself in any legal bind, okay? Do not trap yourself, all right, in these comments, all right? But without putting yourself in any legal bind, what is something that you've learned as an artist and creative on the legal side of things that you are willing to share? What teachable moments can we throw down here in the comments, so that way anyone else who maybe is just starting out can learn from our mistakes without making them? The goal for the comments in my content anyway is always to try to help people out as much as possible, help people not make the same mistakes I make. So yeah, if you have any further tips, educations, etc., throw them down in the comments below. Again, I'm Hallease, endeavoring to persevere as always. Thank you so much for listening / watching this episode of the Trying to Be Somebody podcast. We will be seeing you next week for episode 2. That's right. Don't gotta wait too long. We're on a production schedule for season 2, y'all. Get with it. But we'll see you next week. The Trying to Be Somebody video podcast is a StumbleWell production. Our executive producer and host is me, Hallease. Our editor is Christopher Narvaez. The original cover art for season 2 was designed by Natasha Cunningham. You can follow her on Instagram at AboutNatLife. Finally, our theme song was produced by Jruckers and written and performed by Belief in Music.